Happening now, the OPP are updating the media after an officer was shot and killed near Hagersville last night. Let's listen in.
Ongoing investigation, so there are still unanswered questions surrounding this difficult event. And as we speak, our investigators are working hard to make sense out of a senseless act. From all the members of the Ontario Provincial Police, we'd like you to know that our officers appreciate the public's patience and overwhelming support as we navigate this heartbreaking event. Now, before we begin our formal statements, I'd like to ask you to mute your cell phones so our speakers are not interrupted. We will begin today's remarks from OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrique, followed by comments from OPP Haldimand County Detachment Commander Inspector Phil Carter. A Q&A session will follow the formal remarks, and I want to mention that we are also live streaming today's media conference live on our OPP West Region Facebook and Twitter accounts as well, which will remain there for your reference or to take clips should you need it. We are experiencing a few dropouts on it. Hopefully it'll hold for now. It is now my honor to turn things over to OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrique.
Thank you, Derek. Media partners, thank you very much for your patience. I know I kept you waiting. It was extremely important to me that I personally be here to address you, and through you, the members of our organization and the members of our community. As you all know, yesterday on December 27th at approximately 2 p.m., Provincial Constable Pierzchala responded to a vehicle in a ditch west of Hagersville. As you know, over the course of 3 to 4 days, our officers responded to literally hundreds of motor vehicles that had gone into ditches because of the weather, literally hundreds of motor vehicle collisions. But in this particular case, Provincial Constable Pierzchala was shot and fatally injured moments after arriving on the scene. This was and is devastating news to his family and to our entire organization. Tragically, since September of this year, Greg is the 4th police officer in Ontario to be shot and killed while serving and protecting his community here in the province of Ontario. Provincial Constable Pierzchala was only 28 years old and had just been informed yesterday that he had completed his probationary period with the Ontario Provincial Police. Despite his short time with us, he had been patrolling independently since April of this year, had earned himself a highly regarded and respected reputation from his peers for his dedication to duty, his commitment to being there when his colleagues needed him most. They knew they could rely upon him in the most dangerous and stressful of situations. He was taken from us untimely by this tragic murder. His family is grieving, and we're asking that we respect their privacy at this extremely difficult time. Our hearts go out to them, we mourn with them, and we will be alongside them throughout the journey that they have to face as we first start to plan for a funeral, and information of the funeral will be shared in the coming days. I would like to extend my gratitude to our emergency response team, our canine unit, our aviation unit, our tactics and rescue unit, frontline officers, and officers from Six Nation Police Service who were able to locate and arrest the 2 suspects responsible for the vicious murder of Greg. We thank everyone for their support and patience yesterday while our officers continued to search for these dangerous suspects. As a result, Randall McKenzie, age 25, and Brandy Stewart Sperry, age 30, are both charged with first-degree murder, and both currently remain in custody. It is my understanding that since 2018, McKenzie has been prohibited for life for possessing any firearm. And further that, in 2021, McKenzie was again charged with several firearms-related offenses and assaulting a peace officer. He was later released on bail on a number of conditions, which included to remain in his residence and not to possess any firearms, amongst other restrictive conditions. McKenzie failed to attend court in answer to these charges on September the 6th, 2022, and a warrant was subsequently issued for his arrest. As well, additional criminal charges were laid against Mackenzie. Needless to say, the murder of Constable Gregg was preventable. This should have never happened. Something needs to change. Our police officers, your police officers, my police officers, the public deserve to be safeguarded against violent offenders who are charged with firearms-related offenses. As you can imagine, investigators from the OPP Criminal Investigations Branch are conducting the investigation. And they will be going door to door in the next few days, canvassing for witnesses. I plead with you, if you saw anything, if you know anything, please share this information with our investigators. As I mentioned, details of the funeral will be shared once they're finalized. And our hearts and our sympathies and our prayers remain with Provincial Constable Pierzchala's family as we work through this tragedy together. Once again, thank you for being here with us today, and thank you for your patience while I made my way here from General Headquarters in Orillia. Sarah.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to invite OPP Haldimand County Detachment Commander Inspector Phil Carter to come to the podium to make his remarks.
Good evening. I'm joined this evening by my Staff Sergeant, Belinda Rose, and obviously Commissioner Carrique. I'd like to express my appreciation to all of you assembled here and to the public for your patience and understanding as our Haldimand Detachment members come to terms with this tragedy that has unfolded before us. It's been unimaginable and heartbreaking loss for our officers that worked alongside Provincial Constable Greg Pierzchala. He was a son, a brother, and a friend, and he's no longer with us, and that hurts. The people of Haldimand County, Mississaugas of the Credit, Six Nations, never got to see Greg's bright promise grow into the impressive and exemplary law enforcement career that seemed almost predestined. But we saw glimpses of that future before he was taken from us so suddenly. Greg's death is crushing loss for all of us, throughout the organization and beyond. However, there's been hints of light in what has been a dark and profoundly sad time. I've been heartened by the many heartfelt expressions of sympathy and support by the members of the community. In our front lobby are many flowers, cards expressing sadness and condolences. From all detachment members, I wish to express my profound appreciation and admiration for all those community members that have expressed to us, that have gotten to know Greg and carry that burden along with us, that his life mattered to them as much as it mattered to us. There's going to be difficult days before us, for our members and for the community, but I am very comforted to know that we're not going to carry that burden alone. Thank you so much.
That concludes our formal remarks, which will open the floor to any questions that you may have. I'd ask that you please identify yourself, the media outlet you're working for, and to whom you'd like to direct your question before asking your question. Thank you.
Commissioner, if we could Adrian Grzegorz with CTV National News. As you noted, Mackenzie was released on bail. There was a warrant out for his arrest. He had previous assault with a weapon, grand theft auto, a long list of charges. The fact he was out on bail, and as a result, killed one of your officers allegedly. What is your thoughts?
I'm outraged. I'm outraged by the fact that Mackenzie was out on bail and was provided the opportunity to take the life of an innocent officer. And I know that there's a lot of interest in ensuring to see that changes are made to ensure, where possible, people who are charged with violent offenses that are firearms related are not in those positions moving forward.
Can you share with us at all any working theories around a motive?
I cannot. No, that is something that will be examined in the course of the criminal investigation.
Commissioners, this is Sebastian Braun from the Hamilton Spectator. Appreciating the fact that it's an active investigation, I think everybody's just been wondering how a seemingly routine call quickly turned deadly. Do you have any information about, what exactly happened? Did he get out of the car? Did he approach, the suspect's vehicle and ask him any questions? How did this play out to the point where shots were fired?
Officer is only on scene for a very short period of time. I can tell you that the officer was essentially ambushed and stood absolutely no chance of being able to defend himself. The motives behind that, the circumstances, the timing of which are all part of the active ongoing investigation.
Do you know if he fired any shots himself?
He did not discharge his firearm.
Okay. And are you guys clear yet on who fired the shot and with regards to the two suspects? Were they both involved in this?
Both parties have been charged with first-degree murder.
Did one shoot the shot, or?
That'll be all examined throughout the course of the investigation and presented as evidence before the courts.
Do we know what the relationship might be between the two accused?
I'm sorry, I do not.
You know if they're from the area?
One is from Hamilton, and one is also from the area, correct, yes.
Commissioner Vincent involved with the expositor. I understand there was a shooting. Is there any evidence to indicate that our officer was hit by a car or run over by a vehicle trying to turn this particular act?
I'm not aware of any such evidence nor any information that would lead me to believe that that's factual at all, no.
Did they flee on foot?
Pardon me?
The suspects flee on foot, do we know that?
They did flee in a stolen vehicle, and then they further fled on foot prior to being apprehended by our K-9 unit and our TRU unit.
Okay, so the car was in the ditch and then they left by another vehicle?
They did, yes.
They left by another vehicle and then they were shot from there.
Correct.
Then they fled on foot. They ditched that vehicle, so to speak, and then ran away after that.
So to speak, there's a lot of events that happen in between the two, but yes, they do flee the scene. They steal another vehicle by way of robbery. They flee the scene in that vehicle. They are then located by police, tracked, and apprehended.
So they didn't encounter any citizens during the theft of that vehicle, did they? Or did
They did. It was a robbery. They robbed
they robbed the vehicle.
they robbed the citizen of that motor vehicle and fled the scene.
Would they have done that at gunpoint?
I don't have those details.
Okay.
Do you know where the vehicle was robbed? Was it on that stretch?
It was right at the scene where the officer was shot.
The call for the car in the ditch, I think it came around 2:30, and it was the shelter-in-place warning put out by the OPP. I think it was 3 hours later, around 5:30. Any, could you explain to us your thinking behind that? Why the alert didn't come sooner? Was it because you were still assessing the situation, or?
Very dynamic situation, has to be assessed by the Major Critical Incident Commander and those investigating it, and they would have issued the release as soon as they had enough information to ensure that they could produce what was required to issue a release.
And what went into the search? Can you give us any information about that? Infrared scanners, I know there was helicopters up in the air.
So we had our aviation unit in the air. We had obviously K-9, as I mentioned, our emergency response team, our tactics and rescue unit, frontline officers, a number of officers involved in the search, a number of specialty units, all interoperable with Six Nations Police and all orchestrated through our Provincial Communications Center.
Are we talking hundreds of officers?
I don't know the exact number of officers. There were a number of officers involved, obviously.
And they found the suspects in a field separately, or did they find them?
Within a short distance from each other, is my understanding.
Nanta Garlow from Toronto Times. Can you clarify if the incident, the shooting occurred in Hagersville? Was it on Six Nations? Was it on New Credit? Mississauga's New Credit First Nation?
My understanding is it is considered in Hagersville, where the shooting took place. OPP are the police service of jurisdiction as it relates to the criminal investigation, the laying of the charges, and assisting with the prosecution of those charges.
And so the two suspects were apprehended on Mississauga's New Credit?
I don't know the exact location where they were apprehended, but it was within fairly close proximity.
Are you aware of, or would there be any jurisdictional considerations if the territorial boundaries were impacting where and when what happened?
There's always jurisdictional considerations, but I can tell you the interoperability and cooperation between the OPP and Six Nations Police is seamless. Chief Darren Montour and his officers are some of the most professional police officers in this province, and we enjoy a very close working relationship with them, and they have been at our side the entire time and are truly integrated into our team.
Again, appreciate the fact that it is
So Deanna Simonek-Johnson from CBC's The National. Just wondering, you were saying that Constable Pierzchala did not fire off his gun, and all the details you have about when he first approached the two people who've been charged, did he have a body cam or a recording device, or are you going to the eyewitnesses that testimony on that?
He was equipped with a body-worn camera, so that will form part, obviously, of the evidence that the investigators are working with, as well as they are seeking independent witnesses to the events, which will form part of their canvass that they will be commencing tomorrow. So despite having some video evidence, we are relying on members of the community who saw anything to cooperate with the investigation.
Again, appreciate the fact that it's an ongoing investigation and you don't have all the details clear yet, but you have a rough idea of the distance covered by the suspects from the time the slain officer approached their vehicle in that ditch to where they were apprehended. Are we talking dozens of kilometers?
I personally don't have that information. Obviously, our critical incident commander will, our search masters will, our investigators will. There are technical experts that will have that information. It will all form part of the investigation and be disclosed throughout the proceedings, but I don't have that information available to you today. Thank you very much. Thank you again.
Oh.
All right, well, that will conclude today's event. Again, thank you for attending, and thank you for your patience, and thanks to the public for their patience as well.
Okay, just a horrific story. The OPP just providing an update after two suspects were charged in the shooting death of Constable Pierzchala. Constable Pierzchala was shot and killed near Hagersville yesterday afternoon after responding to a call about a car in a ditch. We are now learning he was ambushed. An emotional OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrique talking about this tragedy, talking about how it's impacted his force, his officers, the officers' family, and the community. We are also learning a man and woman are in custody. They're facing first-degree murder charges. Carrique saying the male suspect in this case, Randall McKenzie, was known to police. He was previously charged with firearms-related offenses. He was prohibited from possessing firearms, and he was released on bail. Carrique saying this should never have happened. He says he is outraged that this man was out on bail and allegedly killed one of his officers. Police cannot comment on the motive at this time. Obviously, it's a very active investigation, and they say funeral details will be released in the days to come. We're keeping a very close eye on this story for you tonight.